if the Chicago Bears do a trade back from 1 to 2 with like the Commanders or the Patriots, and they take Marvin right in front of you, and the second best quarterback in the draft is available, Drake May or Jaden Daniels, pick your poison. I think you can get a similar package to what you got last year. I think you can trade down, get a 1 next year, and still take Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. That becomes their priority then. You cannot stick and pick at 3 if Marvin goes 2 to Chicago in a trade back. I think the Cardinals say, we need a 1, please, and we need a 2. Let's have a conversation. And I think that multitude of teams would come aboard to do that.
Yeah. It gets you excited. I mean, they're really in a prime position to get better fast. It's like it is truly kickstarting a rebuild. Like you had to endure. Like you are Andy Dufresne. You're in the sewage right now. You're crawling through shit.
Can we talk about what you said about rebuilding, extending past this year? I think the rebuild's over.
No, Johnny.
I don't think you can pay a quarterback $52 million and say we're rebuilding.
There's nobody else on this roster.
Wait a minute.
There's nobody else.
For a segment talking about other Pro Bowlers. Like the roster's got holes.
It's a 53-man roster. And they've got 5 guys.
I don't think they're rebuilding in the sense that rebuilding is what I saw this year, where you strip it down and
there wasn't any building, Johnny.
Wait a minute.
They got Paris Johnson Jr. and they got some good players, right? I like BJ Ujulari. I like Garrett Williams. I like Michael Wilson.
I think I think you need to remove the word or the term from rebuilding. I think they're building. They're building a better roster. The rebuild is over. I'm done with rebuilding, please.
I'm sorry you are, but that's exactly what they're doing. Like the rebuild.
My name is Steve Keim, and I refuse to rebuild.
The teardown. I hate to tell you this right now. I mean, Monti Ossenfort's been laying fertilizer all season long. Do you know what that is? Fertilizer is shit.
You guys,
but the good thing is you can grow from the fertilizer, and Monti Ossenfort's been laying it all season long, all off season and season long. The rebuild begins. It's this is the rebuild off season. They tore it down last off season.
No, I think we've endured a rebuilding season. This was the rebuilding season. Now we're retooling as.
Oh my God!
My guy Brian says,
"I'm gonna barf."
We're restructuring. I need to restructure this
You know
team.
Who said that shit?
Michael Bidwell.
Bidwell and Keim. Come on, man.
The rebuild's over.
It does calling it what it is doesn't stop the ability from this team to enter like a contending season, like contending in the sense for a playoff spot. But like to say oh yeah, just a couple, just throw some, maybe some garnish on top of it, of this finished product. They are so far from that. They're still finding building blocks.
We're going to the club. We got the big ticket to the dance. The roster is ready for contention. Let's go. I'm talking about playoffs next year. I don't want to hear the word rebuild. It's 2024. I've endured enough losing football. That's it.
I understand your hardships, but also understand the reality of where this roster is and how much work has to be done this offseason.
I can't wait till Roy Lopez beats the shit out of you in practice when you look at him and you're like, you're a rebuilding piece, Roy Lopez.
At least we're calling things what it is, right? Sure. At least we're being honest.
Chase,
it's not a rebuild because I'm tired of losing. I've endured enough.
If they don't fill every hole in this roster this offseason, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be so pissed off. I think you and I are saying the same thing.
Please unpop your collar.
I think you and I are saying the same thing, but I think where I'm pushing back is I expect them to have a winning record next year. So if I'm expecting that and Kyler Murray's my guy, I don't want to hear rebuild next year. I don't want to hear it. Keep it away from me. If you're telling me the roster needs to get better to get them to 500 or better next year, I 100% agree. Rebuild's a dirty word when you're paying your quarterback $52 million and you feel like you played 500 football with him with a let's just call it a third tier roster, a low level roster. The expectation next year, I can tell you from people close to Jonathan Gannon, is going to be, we are making the playoffs. So if that's the case, okay, we're rebuilding on the fly and we're doing some things and we're going to have holes still. I think they're going to contend for a playoff spot next year. So I'm sorry, I don't want to be sitting here next year with you. Hopefully we're still doing this show every day with me popping my collar and saying 6-11. That's they built off of their 4 wins last year. That's not good enough.
And I hear you there. I'm in lockstep with you. Absolutely. Okay. Like, this is a team that I think can make a tremendous jump as far as how it contends week in and week out, and how that they can narrow the margin, the gap in the talent disparity this offseason. As quick as that. But there's still going to be, like, at this time last year, like, okay, this is still a huge time project right here. Like, the way that you're talking right now is that you're completely renovating a house, and they've laid the foundation. They got the walls up. You got perfect blueprints for a beautiful home, right? And you're walking in there while they're scaffolding and they haven't even, laid drywall or anything. And you're like, I'm going to hang this TV right now. You're getting way ahead of yourself. I got this money 70-inch flat screen. I'm putting it right here because this is where it goes.
The easiest way to break this down, the Detroit Lions, they win 2 games that first year with Campbell. Then they went 9-8. Now they're a top 2 to 3 seed in the NFC. They could have easily made the playoffs last year at 9-8. They just missed it. It's the Detroit comparisons are so spot on because they've got an expensive quarterback. Please pop your collar, needs to be on a t-shirt. Chase $2 super chat. All right. Enough, everybody. This team's going to the postseason next year. Can we just all agree on that? I think we can. I think we can all agree. Didi, I will never stop taking my OGs. Oh no, my mouse is dead now. This is just, has my mouse been disconnected because my takes have been so hot today? All right. You guys protecting this oh man, this isn't looking good at all right here. All right. So in the sake of this show right now, I want to talk about Justin Fields. But before I do, I want to tell everybody right now, Game Time is where you want to be able to get cheap tickets for the Arizona Cardinals this weekend. I mentioned yesterday that tickets were as low as $18. I'm checking them in real time. They're going up just slightly at $26, but now there are some better seats available. There's also a flash deal going on, Bo Brock. $44. You can be in terrace level 443, row 10, 50-yard line for $44. Hell yeah. Give me some of that right now. $85 for row 30. That sounds pretty good. You want to see Kyler Murray, row 13, 102. I mean, it's like you got a little bit of disposable income after the holiday season. This is your last chance to see Kyler Murray until next August, September. I'd be tapping in with that with our friends at Game Time. We're going to save you $20 off your first purchase with Game Time using that bonus code PHNX. So again, probably cover a good amount of your ticket. Buy additional tickets for friends and family. Of course, you refer them using the link below. They can get their own 20% off, but they got to use the bonus code PHNX. You got to tell them PHNX Cardinals sent you to Game Time. And as my guy Bo Brock says, it's not just sporting events. It's everything. It's concerts, concert season, beautiful weather's in full effect, parking passes, one-stop shop. It's the only ticketing app I use. It gets all that additional fees, bells and whistles out of here. It's just like, I want cheap tickets. I'm using Game Time, 20% off, bonus code PHNX.
It's unbelievable. So we started the new year, 2024, pretty much how we navigated the entire 2023 as a family on Monday. So January 1st, Johnny, myself, I looked at the wife. We were trying to figure out what to do for dinner. And I said, let's just do it. Let's go to the usual. We hit up Sunb Burrows out there on 7th Street. Love Sunb Burrows. It's our favorite Mexican restaurant, and it's Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. If you haven't tried it, you got to do it. What are you doing? Do not delay. We love Sunb Burrows. I went out there. I got a delicious my wife, she gets her staples, the number 9. It's the 2 folded taco, shredded beef taco dinner with beans and rice. My son, he usually gets the quesadilla, loves the beans and rice, gets it with milk. I'm always getting the margarita with whatever meal. I like to change it up. I like to get in on, their chimichangas. They got the red, they got the green chili. You have to go check out Sunb Burrows. They got locations throughout the valley, Flagstaff. If you ever far from delicious in the time-tested Sonoran-style recipes, lovingly prepared since 1986. Come check out their newest locations. If you're in Goodyear on the west side, Peoria still out there on the west side, I-17 and Joe Max. Visit sunburrows.com to find one near you. That's SOMEBURROS.com, sunburrows.com to find a location near you. You can order online as well.
Sunb Burrows elite. There's one like 5 minutes away from my house. I hit it up regularly. One of the best reasons to move to the Valley. Sunb Burrows, fantastic.
Oh, they don't have one in the Cope.
No. We get gas station Mexican food there. Let's look at some of these super chats here. Damon Dog, if you could cue these up, it would be very helpful. Let's start with our guy Merv, $5 super chat. The rebuild year is over. Tired of hearing it's a rebuild every year. I want to see this team over 500 next year, contending for the division. Thank you, Merv. You should demand better. Listen, I know
if the team is contending, that's fine, but they're still rebuilding and reshaping the roster.
I think you're giving them a little bit of an out, Mr. Bo Brock. You're buddies with Ossenfort and Gannon every day. Let's put some heat on them. Make moves. I want to see this team sign players in March. If we give them an out that you have another rebuilding year, I'm going to be sitting here with Kazir White and $1.99. I need big ticket items. I want to see them on all the big free agents. They're not going to get everybody. $70 million. I'm done rolling over cap like that. Like, this is, you go out and get some starters, some guys that we can plug in.
Right. I'm not saying they're not going to do that, but look at the roster. Like when we started the season, when we started the discussion about the Pro Bowlers, like you got Buda Baker. You don't really have any questions as far as him and Jalen Thompson on the back end of this defense, as far as their abilities, right? And then Kazir White, you mentioned him, good guy, coming back, right? Rock solid off-ball linebacker. Okay, who else on the defense?
I don't want to play this game. I know how bad
you had to go get.
Listen,
you got to get multiple edge rushers. You got to rebuild the defensive line. And you got to get a couple outside corners. I'm sorry, but you're going to be able to do a lot of work this offseason. You're going to be able to check off a lot of those boxes as far as needs. But at the same time, you're going to be drafting, developing those guys, and some of those guys will pan out and some of those guys won't pan out. And at this time next year, we're going to be like, the Cardinals, man, I love it. They continue to play well. You finally got some talent for Jonathan Gannon and his coaching staff to work with here. They're as competitive as they were before, but more talented. So they're contending in games and they're contending for a playoff spot. But man, is there a glaring hole there at this position group? Because you're not going to be able to do it. And that, just like the Lions, didn't they start like horribly last year, and then they went on a run to end that season?
They were 1-5. If the Cardinals are 1-5,
if you think that the rebuild's over and the growing pains are done, I got some harsh news for you. It's not. It's going to be
like that. I can't believe I
think it's exciting. I think that they're building it correctly for the first time.
Retool Bo. We need a shirt to get emphasis on tool. Retool Bo Brock. He needs to be retooled for these takes today. Brian had a good comment in the chat, and this is the only thing that matters, frankly. How many games would this team have won with Kyler Murray this year? Kyler Murray healthy. They're going to win between 4 and 5 with him.
They beat Washington.
Season.
They would beat New York. So weeks 1 and 2.
The Commanders. They would beat the New York Giants. There's 2 wins. Yep. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he beats Dallas, just like Dobbs. You can scoff at that. I know Dobbs had a career day. I think they beat Seattle in Seattle, that 20-10 game. The Cardinals, it was a 1-possession game against the Ravens. They lost by like 7 points. I think the Cardinals, if Kyler Murray's healthy all season, have 7 wins at the end of the year with a terrible roster.
Okay.
So if that's the case, and we're talking about in a conference, Bo, in a conference where 2 teams.
You said 2 different things there. Like one, the quarterback. I
don't think what you think rebuilding is. The rest of us, in reality, when you say rebuilding, that sounds like a lost year. And that's what people take that as. So I need you to clarify.
I'm sorry that you guys don't understand what rebuilding is.
Don't put it on us.
What I mean is that they're finally going to, like, after tearing it all down and going through the beginning of a rebuild, they're going to get into the next stage of the rebuild, the fun part of adding talent to this roster.
They're going to draft and develop. That's all they're going to be a draft and develop franchise. but that doesn't mean they don't have enough talent exiting this offseason to contend for a playoff spot. And I think you want to call it stage 2 of a rebuild, like Tommy says in the chat. That's fine. I think rebuild.
Are you gonna be okay with that? Isn't it a 4-letter word to you?
I think you throw around rebuild after what this fan base has endured this offseason and the fact that you have a franchise quarterback. No one wants to fucking hear that.
But you're throwing around super team, and you're throwing like,
oh, come on,
you're like, open the window,
2-1s each.
Open the title window now, because the tough times are behind us.
Big Bird 92. Oh, the dreaded forever build. Yeah, I mean, they've never built, period. So I understand what Bo is saying, but like, to think that they're not going to be in contention for a playoff berth next year if Kyler Murray plays the entire year, of course they're going to be in contention. The Bears were in the hunt up until last week, and they were like 1-5, and everybody wanted to fire Eberflus. The NFC is terrible, and it will remain terrible. It's top heavy. There are 2 teams from the NFC South, the division winner, and they could get a wild card team in. And we're talking about the Cardinals with Kyler Murray playing 17 games, not making the playoffs next year. If that's the case, then they should move off of Kyler Murray. If the rationale is Kyler Murray can't make the playoffs in the NFC next year or get them to 9 wins in this shit conference with potentially a first-round receiver and a bunch of money in free agency and Trey McBride and all these players coming back, we might as well just shut the show down right now. I have an expectation right now that I'm going to be living and dying with every game next year because it's playoffs or bust. You need to make the playoffs next year.
I just think that you're hanging on. The word is too nasty for you. The rebuild. Like you're like Jonathan Gannon, where you hear that word and you cringe at it because the expectations, they're going to change next year. And Kyler Murray gives you the ability to change those expectations, especially with what you've seen. I mean, he has a very good chance of finishing 4-4 as the Cardinals started this season. But then also you continue to tell me like he is elevating a terrible roster. Mm-hmm. And my point is there's so much work to be done on this roster. And I think that you're going to make a lot of headway, but it's not going to be complete in the sense that the roster is going
I agree with you there.
Okay.
It's not going to be complete. Making the roster look like San Francisco is going to take more than a couple off seasons for sure. Let's get back to some of these super chats. Damon, can you just start throwing them up here because I have a dead mouse and I can't see anything. Alex, 499. The Niners super team, other than McCaffrey, was all built through the draft. Absolutely. Kittle and Ayuk and Debo. But why did it take a hot minute for them to get going is they had inconsistent quarterback play. Yeah. They had years after they went to the Super Bowl where they picked like 2nd overall because their quarterback play sucked. I think my point is if you're convinced Kyler Murray's the guy, and they are, like most Sundays next year when they're playing a 4th place schedule, when they're playing Geno Smith or whomever, Drew Lock, they should be favored to win those games. You should be favored against the shit teams that you're playing. And they're not playing the AFC North next year. I can tell you that. They're playing the AFC East. New England's going to have a whole new thing going on. The Jets are a disaster. Miami can't stop anybody. Cardinals are going to be just fine.